All right, everybody, welcome to the Friday Senior Solutions Agency call. You got your hosts on here, Joe Johnson and Jimmy Hernandez. And today's topic, we're going to be talking about, building a team. Maybe it's something that you've thought about. Maybe it's something that you have questions on, exactly how it works. And Jim and I are just going to give you some pros and cons. Senior Solutions is built on honesty, integrity, and transparency. So, we're going to tell you the good stuff and the bad stuff about agency building, and maybe it's a good fit for you, maybe it's not. But maybe, hopefully, the purpose of the call is at the end of the day, at the end of this webinar, that maybe you can make a decision that will help you decide, hey, maybe I do want to build a team, maybe I do want to build an agency. So let's go ahead and get the call started. Just two really quick announcements. One is that obviously we're doing this webinar live, but if you happen to be watching on YouTube and you're not subscribed, do us a favor, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out, gets us in front of more people, helps us with the views and the algorithm, that sort of thing. So definitely subscribe. We put out new content virtually just about every single week. We only miss maybe 3 or 4 weeks out of the year that we don't do anything. And if you need to get in touch with me, if you want to have a conversation with me, if you have questions about the content, or if you are interested in possibly joining and becoming part of Senior Solutions, that 630 number that you see, that's my direct number. That's my cell phone. Okay. And then lastly, I urge everybody, FEX Toolkit, get signed up right away. The success stories are just keep piling in. Everyone's telling me about how awesome it is. Putting deals together that possibly they wouldn't have put together before, and really helping them out and solidifying the which carriers is the best choice for each client and their particular health issues. So anyway, if you are interested in getting it, let me know. I'll send you over the link. You can start your free trial. You get a 14-day free trial, is what I'm offering everybody before you have to pay the $114. And the $114 is the annual fee. So it's a one-time fee, $114. That covers you for the entire year service. All right, Jimmy. So with those announcements out of the way, I know you had some time to think about this, but when someone asked the question, hey, why should I build a team? What were some of the things maybe that you thought of over the last day or so about some good reasons that someone maybe should build a team?
Well, I made a list, but I guess the number one thing is multiplication.
Yeah.
And I want to use McDonald's as my example. There's a lot of franchises out there and many that are successful, but one thing that makes McDonald's unique is that they only take a percentage of sales. A lot of franchises out there have a built-in profit on selling the supplies and different things to the franchisee. But McDonald's, they just make a percentage of sales. They sell all the supplies at cost. And when you're a agency builder, that's exactly what you're doing, is you're duplicating your efforts and you're getting a percentage of sales. And so, I guess you can say there's only so much you can do as an individual person. I mean, if you're maxed out, think about this, if you're maxed out on your time and your effort, you're only going to make X amount of dollars by yourself, and you're never going to make more than that because you exhausted every bit of time and energy and effort that you have, right? So if you push yourself to that limit, there's a max, right? So it's like a doctor. He can only see so many patients
right
in one day or in a week, right? It limits himself, right? So what does he do? He opens another office and hires doctors to work for him, right? So it's the same thing, the same principle. The duplication is if you're adding on other agents, you're just going to take what's the word I'm going to look for, an override or a small percentage of their business, and you get to, take that as income. So, I mean, I'll stop right there and let you expand or take that whatever
No,
direction.
that's a really good. I wasn't even thinking about that, dude. But at the end of the day, what you're saying is that there's only 24 hours in a day. There's only so much one person can do. Uh, there's only so many policies you can write in a day, in a week, in a month, in a year. At some point, you reach a point where you just can't do any more, and the only way to get bigger is to expand. And like with the McDonald's thing, one of the things that McDonald's did, I don't know when they did it. Maybe it was back in the 60s or 70s. At some point, McDonald's, in order to increase revenue, they opened a drive-through. So you have people coming in, you have people driving through. That's another way they expanded their business. And then they said, how can we get more business? Well, maybe we extend our hours. Now we'll stay open until midnight. We can get that drive-through business that we weren't getting before. And I think what Jimmy's talking about as an agent, once we've maximized our own personal efforts, the only other way to increase our income is to branch out and put other people in business for themselves. And really what you're doing is you're creating like mini distribution centers of yourself. And like the McDonald's franchise is that you get a small percentage of what that franchise is doing. I think it's a really unique, really a unique concept. And I know when I first was, introduced to the insurance business back in 2009, that team concept thing really clicked in, and I started recruiting like right away. So I've been team building and recruiting since early 2009. What else do you have on your list, Jimmy?
Well, the next thing I have is stability.
Yeah.
So when you have, let's say you have a team of agents, whatever number you want to put on it, 5, 10, 20, 100, whatever whatever your team is, now you're starting to reap the overrides or the commission from a group of people, not just from your personal production. So if, let's say you have a slow week yourself, or, you're in a slump, well, it's nice to see those commissions still come in from the rest of your team. So it kind of creates some stability there in income.
Yeah. What if you get sick? What if you get COVID and you're out for 2 weeks?
Exactly.
I mean, I mean, I mean, it it happens. And at some point too, I think you got to look at where you are and think to yourself, you know, how long do I want to do personal production? Now, you may be one of those guys that are thinking to yourself, listen, I don't want to build a team. I don't want to be responsible for anybody else. I just want to go out and do my thing, which is awesome. Other people, like I'm just saying from my point of view, my perspective, when I got into the business, I'm an older guy. I was 45 when I got my insurance license. Okay. I was thinking to myself is that, listen, when I'm 60 or 65, do I really want to be going out and, you know, hustling and working 50, 60 hours a week doing personal production? And I thought to myself, man, it would be nice to have an agency where I had a passive, residual type of income where I can, work from home or work from my office or, be able to still be in the business, but have the majority of my income be driven from more of a passive override type of income versus 100% of my income being driven off my own personal production. Because as we get older, things happen, man. I mean, maybe you get sick, or maybe you have, you need to have knee surgery or shoulder surgery or whatever. Things happen. So it gives you that stability. And to kind of piggyback off what you're talking about as far as stability too. The other thing about team building that sometimes people don't think of, and if you are considering building a team, what's kind of cool about it is that it gives you the ability to be able to operate your business in different geographic locations. And this gives you stability because due to natural disasters, weather conditions. Here's what I mean by that. If you're an agent in Florida, and let's say you're in Tampa, and all you only recruit and hire agents in Tampa. Well, if a hurricane comes through, knocks everything out, your whole team may be out of production, out of business for a month or so. Okay. Or what if you're in San Antonio and there's a snowstorm that comes? I mean, nobody's out running production in a snowstorm, I promise you. But if you had agents in Florida, or maybe, other part, California or whatever, or it could be California. What if you have agents in California, but due to earthquake or fires or whatever, those agents can't get out and personally produce. But if you have agents in maybe the Midwest, the Southeast, so it just as your team gets bigger, and it's always good if you're going to build a team to keep it local in the beginning, but eventually it's good to get a little bit more diversified in different parts of the country, because I know personally I've had like when Jimmy, I can't think of the name of it. You may remember, but what the big within the last couple of years, the big hurricane that rolled through and hit Houston really bad. I can't think of the name of it, but just as an example, we've got a ton of agents in South Texas, and they were all out of business for quite a while due to that hurricane. But we still had agents in northern Texas, California, the Midwest, the Southeast, Florida. I guess Florida is part of the Southeast. So as an agency, we really didn't see that big of a dip of income, because only a small portion of our income was driven from those agents that were affected by the hurricane. And then the other thing too is just, I think we kind of touched on this, but just to kind of end it with this is creating a long-term residual type of income for retirement. The thing about it is that when you personally stop producing and you want to hang it up, yeah, you're going to continue to get your personal renewals until those run out. But if you had created an agency, and you've got, especially if you've got younger people, in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s that are still well into their working years, you can continue to keep receiving those residuals and override income later in life, if you build a good agency. But anything else that you have? I'm curious what else you had on your list.
Well, I have a few more actually.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Let's. I'd like to hear.
Okay, so the next one is actually kind of an immediate, I guess something you see benefit right away, is that if you're building a team, it boosts your comp level up, because you have higher production numbers. You're able to move up the commission tier chart. So now when you're writing your personal production, you're getting a higher comp on your personal business. So that's kind of a nice thing.
Yeah, it is nice, especially when you get up to the, the 120, 125, the
Hmm.
bigger contracts, it really makes a difference.
It does. And then so here's some other things, kind of a side note is one, here's a benefit. Your personal skill set, it gets elevated to the next level. And what happens is you're training those new agents that you're taking in under your wing, and it just happens because you're training them, you're instilling in yourself those skills and those habits and disciplines that you're training them, but it's like I guess you can say reinforcing those things to you, and you just naturally will rise to a higher level. So that's a benefit not very many people talk about. And then the next part of that is the accountability. So now you're having to hold them accountable, but it also holds yourself accountable, uh, kind of like taking it to the next level. And then sometimes they hold you accountable. So just because of the accountability component, you're performing at a higher level. So that's pretty neat.
Yeah, I agree.
And then one other little thing, Joe, is kind of cool, but if you're on leads and you're buying leads and you're working through them, there's always a bunch of leads that I'm going to say get discarded. And I don't mean you're throwing them away, but you've already exhausted them, you've already worked them. Either you couldn't get a hold of them or you couldn't sell them. And so you have this pile of leads or files of leads that um, you've already worked through, and you didn't make any money off of them, right? So when you have a new agent, you basically hand those leads down to them, and now you got a new person with new energy, with hope and excitement, and they're going out there, and it never ceases to amaze me how they pull cells out of my old leads. And
Yeah.
maybe part of it's a different personality, a new face, maybe it's timing, maybe they caught them at home when I didn't, maybe something happened in that person's life, a death or something, and when I knocked on their door, they weren't, you know, ready for it. But now something happened in their life, and now they are ready, right? So it's a way of getting some additional monies off of those leads you've already paid for, because it's going to come in the form of an override compensation. So that's kind of a nice little bonus. It also helps train those agents. So those are a few things that I had, Joe. I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, dude. Well, let's move on. I think we're giving you a lot of good reasons to build. Now I'm going to do something that we're going to play a little game here, I guess you could say. It's a game I called Truth or Myth about agency building. So I've thought of a couple of things, and these are things that agents have either told me why they couldn't build, or just different things. I think we'll just have a little bit of fun with this. But the first one is that they need to be a top producer. Is that true, or is that a myth? Well, I say it's about, for me, I'd say it's about a half truth. Okay. Um, Very rarely do you see someone who's a prolific recruiter who wasn't a decent producer. Okay. But at the same time, you don't need to be like the number one guy in the agency. I mean, I was never the number one guy in the agency. I was always a good producer. Um, when I was strictly focused on personal production, I mean, on a regular basis, I was hitting over $20,000 a month in personal production, but I wasn't like the top guy. Maybe I was the number one agent of the week a few times out of the year, but I wasn't that guy that was doing three, four, or $500,000 in personal production. So I think that's a little bit of a myth. You don't need to be the super top producer, but you do need to be a good, solid producer. You need to be good enough that you get your name out there, people know who you are, and you've got numbers to show other agents.
Hey Joe, can I give an example of that?
Yeah, sure thing.
So I'm gonna say, like, I'm gonna take it a little different angle. When I was doing personal production, I was hitting that leaderboard pretty often, pretty consistently. I was pretty proud of myself and my work ethic and my system. And in my mind, I thought, nobody's gonna compare to me. That, maybe that's being a little, braggadocious or something. But I thought, man, I'm not gonna be able to find anybody like me. And then I recruited Richard Luna, who far surpassed my efforts and
Right.
accomplishment. Just blew me away. And I thought, man, this guy's something else. And then Richard recruited another girl, Amina, that like doubled his efforts. I was like, what the hell? You know, and so it just, I guess what I'm saying is, you don't put yourself in that box thinking nobody's going to be better than you, because it seems like there's always somebody out there that is better, or maybe they're on fire, or they have a light under them. So I mean, you never know what you're going to get. Don't get me wrong, I've had my fair share of duds too, right, as far as
Yeah.
recruits. But you know there's always going to be somebody that is driven, and that's something that you really can't train. They just have it. And when you have that person on your team, it just really takes your team to another level.
Yeah, you just got to find them, dude. And yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you put enough people in, you're going to find people that are just better than you when it comes to personal production. Another thing that I hear from agents is that they just feel like they don't have the personality, or they say, "Hey, I'm not an extrovert, or I don't have charisma. I'm not charismatic enough to be a leader." Guys, and you don't need to be who I don't know, Tony Robbins, or you don't. I think that for me, I think that's a total myth, that you have to have some type of special personality, that you got to be over the top. I mean, I'm not. I'm a total introvert, man. Charismatic. I'm not, I don't know. Just work hard. What's your thought on that, Jimmy?
uh, I definitely think that, like the last scenario, you just never know who you're going to get. So you could be an introverted person, but somebody on your team steps up and they take that charismatic role, and you don't
Yeah,
need, they could be a leader on your team, so you don't need to be that charismatic person. There's a lot of things that you do need to be. You need to be positive, and you need to be consistent. You need to be a good teacher, a good trainer. You need to be available. I mean, there's a lot of things that you got to be, but I don't think you have to be charismatic.
got it. I don't either. I think you just need to put the work in, and people will be attracted to your work ethic, that sort of thing. The other thing I hear is that I need a lot of experience in order to build a team. Um, there's a little bit of truth into that, but I think that's mostly a myth. The thing about it is, I think um, it's like it's like saying, well, I need to get experience before we have kids. You know what? You'll figure it out. If you hire an agent, you'll figure out what to do. So as far as, in my opinion anyway, as far as needing a lot of experience, you really don't, unless you are building the whole thing on your own. The great thing about being part of an organization like Senior Solutions and Integrity Marketing Company is that the platform is already built. So you don't need to be the superstar guy who's been doing it for 10 years and has all this experience. Is that we've got the platform in place that allows you to hire and recruit someone without having a lot of experience, and let our expertise and let the the website and the training videos and all the training that we have in place do some of the work for you. And you will get, and the other thing too, Jimmy, is that the only way to get experience is to do something, you know. So there with anything, whether it's personal production or building an agency, is that there's going to be a learning curve. The sooner you get through the learning curve, the faster you'll get that experience.
Well said.
Anything to add on that, or can we move to the next one?
Yeah, let's move on.
All right. Let's see. What do I have? Oh, number 4. It's too much financial exposure. Like I've had agents tell me, I don't want to recruit because I don't want to be responsible for other people's chargebacks, or or they've heard horror stories of huge chargebacks and things like that. Well, there's some truth to that, but what is too much financial exposure? Like, what does that even mean? I mean, just as a personal producer, you have financial exposure. You go out and personally sell a policy and your client bails on it, you're exposed to the financial responsibility of having to pay that charge back. Same way with as you're building a team. If you have an agent that has a chargeback, they're responsible for their own chargeback, but you got to pay back the percentage that you got paid, whatever it is. And then the agency has to pay their part back, and it rolls all the way up to integrity. Integrity's got to, everybody has to, everyone's affected by chargeback. So I can respect the feeling where someone says, hey, it's too much financial exposure. And if that's your thought going into it, then you probably shouldn't start an agency, because what will happen is that once you get going, you have that first agent that gets a roll up or a chargeback. Then that agent says, they quit, and then that charge up rolls up to you, and you're faced with a $500 or $1,000 bill for an agent that bailed on you. That'll drive some people out of the business. I've seen it happen. That's why you got to be into it for the long haul. And the other thing that we'll talk about is, as you're building, that's why it's important to always maintain your own personal production and get out there and personally produce $10, $15, $20,000 a month of your own personal business. So if you do get a charge back from an agent, or if an agent stiffs you with a bill, and it's going to happen, it's inevitable. If you get into agency building, you're going to have financial exposure. It's part of it. It's just like owning any other company. You can't have all the upside without any of the downside. Does that make sense, Jimmy?
It does. Let me speak to that for a second.
Okay.
That is true. I mean, I've seen probably more than my fair share of chargebacks and roll-ups. But here's the thing. It's something that you're able to manage or mitigate, if you will, by the rest of your team. So if you're building a team and you have, 1 or 2 agents that maybe has chargebacks on the right side, well, on the left side, you got, 4 other agents that are still producing. So it kind of offsets,
Yeah.
the chargebacks. It kind of, I guess you can say the bigger my team got, it kind of absorbed it. You know what I mean? I'd see a big chargeback, and then, within a couple of days, it's already gone because the overrides from the other agents. So, I mean,
Right.
the thing is you just have to keep building, and you have to, not only keep building, but keep building your team as far as their personal production and their skill set, and you're, if you not just growing like by adding numbers on, but you're improving your production with quality and agents and stuff like that, the chargebacks will take care of themselves with the other, the other members of your team's production. So
Absolutely. And guys, as you start building your team, we'll have, one-on-one conversations and talk about it. All right, number 5. I don't need to personally produce. All right, that is a total myth. We've seen that happen too many times, guys. Here's what I'm telling you. If you're saying to yourself, well, listen, I just want to build a team. I don't actually want to go out and sell myself. Forget about it. Don't start. It doesn't work. Never seen it work. Never will work. Again, you don't need to be the top producer. You don't need to be the number one guy in the country to do it, but you do need to produce enough to give yourself the credibility to other people. So that is a total myth that you don't need to personally produce, that you could only strictly agency build without personally producing. I'm assuming you would agree with that, Jimmy?
I totally agree with that. I mean, there's guys out there that are just really good at recruiting, but they're not wanting to do anything on the sell side. They never last, and it's kind of like torture for them. I think they would just be better off, going to some kind of network marketing organization if that's what they're good at, But if you're wanting to build an insurance organization and you're wanting to, produce an agency that's going to be effective for you, you have to be out there producing it yourself. You can't just what's the word I'm looking for? Hope things are going to work out, because how can I say, you have to lead by example. You can't just constantly say stuff or point to this or point to that as an example. You have to be the example, and you have to be able to speak from experience,
Right, not hypothetical, not from a book. You can't read it in a book.
Yeah.
You can't read how to do brain surgery in a book and go do it. You need to get mentored and get the training and do it. All right, I got a couple of more. I'm too old or I'm too young. I've heard both of those. Man, you're never too young. You're never too old. I don't know if he's on the call or not, but we got a guy down in Georgia who is, I think he's almost 80, and he was with me a couple of years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. He left for some reason. I'm not sure why, but now he's back and he's 79 or 80 years old and he's building a team. So that goes to show that you're never too old. And young, man, you can never be too young. I think about it, man. I was 45 when I got into this deal. I'm just like, man, where would I be today had I started 20 years prior? If I was 25, fresh out of college or I was out of the Marine Corps, but fresh out of school, got into this business and started building. I just so you're never. So the answer to this is a total myth. You're never too old. You're never too young, man. Use where you are in life. Use your age as an advantage. Okay. And then I have one last one. Do you want to add anything to the I'm too old, I'm too young?
No, not at all.
Okay. Here's the last myth, is that building an agency is all rainbows and unicorns. You want to talk about that, Jimmy?
That's definitely a myth.
Yeah, there's a lot that comes with it, guys. I mean, trust me. I mean, but it's worth it. At the end of the day, listen, I'm not complaining about it, but I mean, answering emails and text at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and making yourself available is, being on the phone as much as I am, work. I enjoy it, but it's a lot. I mean, I'm just telling you, when you run a big agency, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of responsibilities, and it's not all rainbows and unicorns. But at the end of the day, I think it's worth it to be able, whether it's a, a small agency of a few, it's very, at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say is, for me, like, it's very rewarding. Like, um, I enjoy being able to sit back and look and say, hey, man, I helped this guy put food on the table for his family. I helped this guy be able to build his new house, because we put him in business, and, they're able to make more money than they've ever been able to make before, and put themselves in a great financial situation. But with that, there's a lot of stuff that comes with it, which we're not going to get into on this call. But as you build your team, and you run into those problems, I'm just letting you know is that we're here to help you and get you through all those things, because we've been through it, and give you the encouragement and the right advice to be able to build your team properly. So with that, what I thought I would do, okay, we still have about 25 minutes. So Jimmy, what I wanted to do is run through some kind of like team building kind of scenarios, and kind of lay out kind of like what the income potential would be.
Sure.
Oh, actually, before that, I wanted to go over the pay plan. Guys, I think everybody has a copy of this, but the Senior Solutions pay plan, let me get a pointer. Okay, so most of you know is that our lowest contract available, 85%, which is the starting contract, and then all the way over here, 135 with most of the carriers, and then 140 with Americo and CVS. That's the top contract. And as Jimmy was talking about, is the ability to be able to increase your own personal contract through team production. The one thing that's unique about the Senior Solutions pay plan is that there are not two different structures. There's not a personal production structure and a team builders platform. It's just it's all together. I know, as an example, with another really big agency, as an example, is that you can, they have one of their contract level, I'll just give you an example. They have a contract level of 135, okay? And the 135 contract, you can get there as a personal producer if you're doing $60,000 a month in production by yourself, okay? Not including your team. You have to do $60,000 a month in personal production. I'm not saying it can't be done. I just don't know any. I mean, I've never seen it done. We've had agents get close to 40, but it wasn't consistent. It wasn't something that they did like month after month. So yes, I've seen pay plans with other agencies where you can get to 135 on your own pen if you can do $60,000 of personal production. But if you can't, then it requires $300,000 of team production. So in other words, let's say you are a big producer and you're doing $30,000 or $40,000 worth of production. In order to get a 135% contract, then you would need an additional, let's say, 260,000 of team production, and then add in your 40 to get 300. Am I making sense there, Jimmy?
Yep.
Whereas with ours, it's 150. And of course, with ours, in order to get to 135, it's not going to happen without a team. No one's going to do $150,000 of personal production. However, and I think this was probably about a year ago, what we instituted were lifetime production levels. Whereas if you've got that producer, maybe you're not a team builder, you don't want to build a team, I respect that. All you want to do is personally produce. We have it in place that we will give you cumulative credit for your production. As you can see right here, it starts at the 100% level. For 100% level, the normal requirement is that you need to be doing $12,000 a month in personal or team production, it doesn't matter, in order to achieve 100% contract. Very achievable. But what if you're that part-time agent? Let's say you're that part-time guy and maybe you're only writing $50,000, $60,000 a year in personal production. Well, with the new lifetime personal production is that once you've achieved $150,000 of a personal achievement, whether it takes you 2 years, maybe it takes you 3 years, you'll get promoted to the 100% level. And then to go to a 105, it takes either $15,000 of personal or team production, or again, if you're strictly a personal producer, you can get there with just $200,000 of lifetime producer. I'm not going to go through each one, but I'm going to pop it up here. As you can see, that continues to the 115, to the 120, to the 125, even 130. Okay, so with our pay structure, with most of the carriers, you can get to a 130-point contract with $1 million of personal production. So if you're that guy that's doing, let's say you're not a team builder, but you're doing $20,000 a month of production, man, in 5 years you can get to a 130 contract without ever building an agency. The other thing on the pay plan that I just want to point out that kind of throws people off, and if you read down below, it kind of explains it. But you understand the numbers as an example. The 85%, that's not for every product across the board. That's for final expense, most of the final expense carriers. Where it says IULs in GI, IUL is for the IUL product. We're specifically talking about National Life Group, okay? Other carriers like Mutual of Omaha has an IULE. That may be, they're going to have their own grid, maybe a little bit higher in certain circumstances. But for the most part, as you can see, the IUL goes from 60 all the way. The top contract is 110% with National Life Group. And the GI is for guaranteed issue. And this is specific to the Gerber guaranteed issue pay plan or pay structure. So just kind of wanted to give you a quick review of the comp. If you need a copy of it, if you don't have a copy of it, let me know. I'll make sure that I'll get you a copy of it, but everyone should have access to it. And with that, let me roll to the, I got to get the laser off first. Let's see. Okay. All right, Jimmy, we're not really going to go into I think everybody understands how income works on your own personal production. So let me get a highlighter here. Sorry about that. I went to the wrong screen. Here we go. And that in black. Okay. So in these scenarios, for the most part, what we're going to be talking about is you in your personal production of doing roughly about $15,000 a year. So, or $15,000 a month in production. So the first scenario that we're going to be talking about is you putting together an agency of 3, 4, 5 people doing roughly about $35,000 a month in production. And what we typically refer to that as is agents that are, when you personally recruit an agent that's direct to you, sometimes you'll hear us use the word base shop. That's referring to agents that report directly to you. You recruited them personally. So in this particular scenario, what we're looking at is that you've got a base shop of 3, 4 to 5 agents that are doing roughly about $35,000 in production. And what Jimmy was talking about how it's a cumulative effect, about how your personal comp level is based not only on your own personal business, but it's based on your team's production as well. So if you take the 35,000 and you add that to your 15,000, that means that your total agency is doing $50,000 in what we refer to as annual premium. So if you look at the Senior Solutions comp plan and you look at, that's going to put you as an agency director, $50,000 a month of issue pay would put you personally at a 120. So now your contract on your own personal business that you're writing, you're getting paid 120% of that business. Off of your base shop, you're going to get paid the differential of the agents that are direct to you, each individual one. Just for this example, if you've got, like I said, if you've got, 4 or 5 agents doing 35,000, it's reasonable to assume that most of those agents are doing somewhere between $8,000 to $12,000 worth of business. So most of them are going to be probably somewhere between 90, maybe to 105% contract. So for just easy math, what we're going to say is we're going to say your average contract of these agents, we'll just say they've all gotten up to 100% contract. The differential, the difference between your contract and their contract is 20%. I hope everyone's tracking on this. So let's kind of do I've got a calculator here. We're going to kind of do the math on that. First thing I want to do is let's do your own personal production. If you're writing $15,000 of personal issue paid business and you're at a 120, so 15 times 120, that means you're getting paid off of $18,000 of premium times 75%, because that's how much you're going to get advance. So in this scenario, your own personal income off of your own personal PIN, advanced income, is $13,500. Okay. Now let's look at your team.
And I want to interject something here, and maybe you write this on the screen. Without the team, you'd be at 105%.
Yeah, I wasn't going to show that, but yeah, good.
But you basically have a 15% increase in pay on your personal production because of your team. But now we're going to add the team override.
Yeah, very, very good. That's a really good point. All right, so your base shop is doing 35,000. And let's see, we said we got a 20% override, right? So times 20%, which I think is how much? 7,500? 35,000 times 0.2, $7,000. Yeah, $7,000. And then times 75%, because you get advanced 75%, just like you do on your own business. That's 5,250. I'm going to add that over here. 5,250. So what's your total here? 5, 7, 8. You just bumped your income up to 18,750 advanced, not including back end, not including renewals. 18,750 times 12. Guys, that's $225,000 annual. There are CEOs of small companies that don't make that much money. That's pretty good for just having a small team of, honestly, like 3, 4, 5, maybe 6, not superstar producers, average, what I would say to be, average producers. Okay. Now, let's move into a different scenario. Let's say you continue to build, but you find that agent who, like, it all clicks, and now you've got the agent who wants to become the recruiter. Okay. So as you can see, you still have you've got your base shop, you've got agents that are direct to you, but you hired and recruited a person who, what we consider, like, broke out and started building their own agency. They're actually duplicating what you're doing. Let's take a look at how this is going to affect you and what your income could be. First thing I want to do is let's add up the total production. let's say we got 35,000 in the base shop. We got $50,000 from this group. That's 85,000. You're still doing your 15,000. So it's going to put you at $100,000 of annualized premium for your entire organization. Again, look at the Senior Solutions pay plan. 100K in production is now going to put you at 130% contract. Now, as what Jimmy was mentioning, is that if you hadn't built the team, you would only be at a 105. Now that gave you, now you got a 25% increase in your own personal comp. Again, how it works as far as it's going to work the same way as it did before. The one thing I want to explain that sometimes is a little bit confusing is that when you have an agent that starts building his own agency and has his own downlines, is that you always get the differential between your contract level and the top guy of that agency. So as an example, and we're talking about this agency right here. They're doing $50,000 a month. What that means is that this agency director, his personal comp is going to be 120. You're at 130. You've created a 10% differential, which means you're receiving a 10% override off of his entire hierarchy. So when this guy down here, who maybe maybe he's at an 85 or a 90 point contract, when he writes a piece of business, you're going to still be receiving a 10% override. So if he writes a deal for, let's say, $1,000 AP, you're 10%, you're going to make $100 off of an agent who's 3 levels deep. Okay, that's the power of recruiting and then duplicating and finding someone else in depth, these agents that are writing business. So let's take a look at an income standpoint. Let's do our own personal production real quick, because we're still doing 15,000. I'm going to take that 15,000 times 1.3, it's 130%. Now we're getting paid off of personal production. Even though I wrote 15,000, I'm getting paid off of 19,500 because I'm at a 130 contract times 0.75. So off of my own personal pen, my advance commission is $14,625. Off of this group that's doing 50K, let's see, I've got a 10-point override, so that's 5K. And then let's see, 5K times 0.75, that's 3750. So we're going to add that to our income. Jimmy, do you have a calculator where you are? Whoops.
Yes, I do. Let me crack it out.
Maybe as I'm doing these numbers, you can do the calculating for me.
Okay.
That was 3750. And then off of your base shop, we're still going to assume that all the agents that are direct to you, they're at somewhere around 100% contract. So now you've got a 30-point spread on your base shop. Okay. So we're going to take 35K times 30%. 35K times 0.3, which is 10,500 times 75% advance. Hope this is making sense for you guys. So Jimmy, add up these three numbers over here on the right. I got 7875. That's the override off of your base shop. So I got 14,625, 3750, and 7875.
That gives you a total of 26,250.
Times 12.
That's $315,000.
I think most people on this call would take that. And you got guys, the 10, about 120, 130,000 of that is passive income. So I'm hoping all this scribble is making sense to you guys. All right, I want to give you kind of like one more scenario, and then talk about how the bonus structure works, and then talk about renewals, and then we're probably going to go over a little bit. Okay, so this is kind of like the ultimately where you want to get to, where you've got that team builder who's building a team, and what you'll see will happen is that as you start building, and you got one guy who's building a team, that will sometimes catch fire, and you'll have other agents within your agency say, well, man, Mary's building a team, I want to build a team. So in this particular scenario, you've got 4 team builders. You got A team, Bravo team, Charlie team, and Delta team. So let's just take a look at where each team is individually. And as you can see here, we're going to show you what your income will be, but without any personal production. So we got the A team. A team's doing $75,000 of production. So that means A team is at 125%. Bravo team is doing 50,000. He's at a 120, or she just said. Charlie team is doing 35, so they're at a 115. We got Delta team doing $25,000 of production, so they're at a 110. And then you've got your base shop, and again, we're figuring you keep putting in new agents, your base shop is there. So here you've created all these different percentages. When you add up the total production, when you add up 25K plus another 25K plus 35K plus 50K plus 75, we've got it where your entire team is doing $210,000 a month in total annualized premium. So you've created these different distributions channels. So now that's going to put you at the top contract level of 135. So now here you've created you've got a 10-point spread, you got a 15-point spread, you've got a 20-point spread, you've got a 25-point spread, and here you got a 35-point spread. I'm going to do the math here real quick. There really isn't a lot of room to write everything down, but I'm going to do each one individually. So on your A team, you got $75,000 worth of production times 10%, 7,500 times 0.25. Okay, we'll say Alpha team, we'll put an A there. We got 56.25.
Hey Joe, rather than figuring the advance on each one, just figure the advance at the end one time.
Oh, okay. Well, let me erase that. Good point. That would make it go a little bit quicker. Okay, so we got 75. Okay, so that's easy. So we got 7,500 there, and then we've got 15% on one. We got 15% on 50,000. That's also 7,500, right? Mm-hmm. We got a Charlie team. We got a 20% on 35,000, which is $7,000. Mm-hmm. And we got Delta team. We've got a 25% on 25K. How much is that?
$6,250.
and then we have our base shop, and we've got a 35-point spread on 25,000.
It's 8750.
Okay, are you going to add all those up for me?
Yeah, let me add them up now. That's 37,000.
All right, and then times 75% advance.
27,750.
27,750 advance, 100% passive income without any personal production. You're well over $300,000 a year. How big and this is just, guys, you can build it. It could be 300,000, it could be 500,000, it could be $1 million, it could be 1.5, it could be 3 million. Okay. The beauty of it is that there's no limit to how big you can get it. The one question I do have, which I want to cover, and maybe we're going to go over a little bit, but I think this is important. A lot of people have asked me, well, what happens if, let's say this guy right here, let's say this guy is just and I say guy, boy or girl, but this guy is a total superstar, and you're at a 135, and his team blows up and surpasses you. What happens? Well, there's a bonus structure that's in place, and I just want to show you how it works real quick. Because once your team, someone gets to your level, 135 or higher, technically you are losing your override because you're all at the same contract level. So let me erase all this, and then I'll show you how it works, how the bonus structure works. Pretty interesting. Okay, pen. Okay, so here again, you're at 135. We're assuming this guy, let's say he got his team up to 200K. Okay, so now he's at a 135%. And let's assume your whole team, let's say you've been able to maintain your production and your team is doing 200,000. Okay, so this guy over here is he's your equal. You guys are contemporaries. Maybe he's even bigger than you. Hopefully he does get bigger than you. How the bonus structure, how the executive vice president bonus structure works is that you will continue to get an override or a percentage of that person's business, provided you still have your own team production, and we call it side production. And what we do is, how it works is that for every $50,000 of side production that your team is continuing to do, not including his, you get a 0.25% override. Okay, so as an example, how this would work is that my teams continue. I'm still doing 200K. How many times does 200,000 go into?
4 times.
Yeah, 50 goes into 200K 4 times. Okay, 4 times 0.25 equals 1. So 1%. So as an example, in this scenario, 1% of 200,000, because this guy's doing 200,000, you would get a $2,000 bonus for his production, even though technically you guys are at the same contract level. You're equals. Okay, it will continue to grow. As an example, let's say you continue to build and it's years down the road. Let me erase this real quick. And just as an example, this guy, we already know he's at a 135 pin. Let's say he grows his team. Now he's doing 400,000 of production. Let's say your team continues to grow. You've got $400,000, $400,000 of production. Now you take a look at the bonus structure. How many times does 50 go into 400K? Goes in there 8 times. 8 times 0.25 equals 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
2%. Now you're getting 2% of his 400K, which is, that should be $8,000.
Mm-hmm.
So now now your bonus is because you're getting rewarded for maintaining your own agency production. As his team is growing, your bonus structure increases. So now you got an $8,000 a month bonus that's not subject to chargebacks. It's just pure, it's not really even override, it's just bonus money. So you don't have to worry about chargebacks or anything as far as that goes. The other thing I wanted to hit on really, really quick, and I think I can do it in just a couple of minutes, is we haven't even talked about renewals, okay? About how the renewal aspect works as you're building an agency. Once you get your team up, and let's say that, well, let me go back for a minute. As you're building your override, keep in mind is that you are also getting a spread off of residuals. And the renewal amount does vary depending on carrier to carrier, but the spread is typically about the same. As an example, at a 135 contract, I need my pen back. At 135% contract, your renewal could be anywhere from 6.5% to 8.5%. It's going to depend upon the carrier. But I know with like example Transamerica, I know it's 8.5%. As an example, your team A over here, your top guy that's at the 125, he's at a 7.5%. Okay, so you got a 1% spread off of on your base shop. The agents that are around 100%, they're at 5.5%. So now you got a 3% override on renewals. As an example, if your team, so let's just say, you've got 2, you've got 1. Let's just say on average, let's just say that your average spread on renewals as you're building your team is 1.5%. Okay, this is how it can add up. If you've got an agency that's doing, let's say, $200,000 a year in production, and you've been doing this 4, 5, 6 years, let's just take 200,000 times 5. Let's see. Well, I'm sorry, 200,000. That's 2.4 million. 2.4 million times 5 equals. That means you've built up a book of business of $12 million. Okay, now I'm realistic enough to think that ain't all of it going to stay on the books. Okay, let's just say half of it. Let's say after 5 years, half of the business falls off. I'm going to cut that down to 6 million. You're still earning a 1.5%. Even if half the business falls off, you still got a 1.5% residual or renewal that's coming in like clockwork on $6 million. What is that? 6 million times 1. I'm sorry, I did my math wrong. 6 million times 0.015. My calculator's going crazy on me. Almost got it. Times 0.015 equals 90,000. That's what it is. So you got $90,000 a year coming in off of assuming half the business falls off the books, $90,000 a year coming in renewal override income. Okay. that's going to keep coming in for as long as those. So that's just, I mean, you compile everything, and guys, I mean, you're talking realistically, probably at least 500K a year income with this type of structure right here, this type of that type of scenario. So anyway, just some food for thought. And I thought I would really kind of lay this out so people really understood, maybe give you a better understanding some of the complexities or exactly how it really does work as far as agency building. With that, Jimmy, I think we ought to wrap it up because I'm just ran like 12 minutes over.
All right. Well, man, Joe, that was really cool. I always like looking at the numbers, so it always gets me excited.
Yeah, me too, man. Math doesn't lie, for sure. All right, guys. Well, if you have any questions regarding today's content, I do apologize for going over, but just so much information to lay out there. But if you'd like to have a conversation with me one-on-one, a little bit more about agency building, how we can get you started, please contact me. Other than that, everybody have a great weekend. I am going to be off next week. I'll be available. You can call or text me, but I'm really not going to be working that much. I'll be back in 2 weeks to join Jimmy for the next webinar. All right, everybody. God bless and take care.
Bye-bye.
All right, man. See ya.